Hi everyone, in this video we're going to learn how to rationalize equations. We're going to start off with just looking at equations with one square root on the bottom. And remember, when we rationalize, we don't want a square root on the bottom. So the easiest way to get rid of a square root of root 3 is multiply it by root 3. However, we can't just multiply the denominator, we have to multiply the numerator as well. So in order to rationalize something like this, we are going to multiply it by whatever square root is on the bottom, in this case, a root 3. The magic of doing this is think about what happens when you multiply a root 3 by another root 3. This is like squaring it. So we technically have a root 3 that is squared. And when you square a radical, you cancel out the radical. They undo each other. So you just end up with 3. So that's going to be the denominator of this equation. And on the numerator, we're going to have to fully FOIL this. So we got to do 5 times root 3 multiplied by 2 times root 3. When you FOIL this, root 5 times root 3 is going to give you root 15. And 2 times root 3 is just going to give you 2 root 3. And like we said, our denominator is going to end up being 3. Similarly, if we look at another example here, we can do the same thing. So we have a root 2 on the bottom that we don't want. We're going to multiply it by root 2 over root 2. That is going to make the radical on the bottom go away. And on the numerator, we're going to expand this. So multiply both of those by root 2. Root 7 times root 2 is going to give you root 14. 2 root 2 times root 2 is going to give you 2 root 4. And that is divided by root 2 times root 2, which is just a 2. And keep in mind here, root 4 is a perfect square, so we can simplify this even more by taking the square root of that. So it's going to be 2 times 2, which really just works out to a 4. So our final answer is going to be square root of 14 plus 4 divided by 2. But what happens if we don't just have one radical on the bottom? What happens if we have two? So if we have two radicals, what we're going to do is apply our difference of squares knowledge. So if we think back to factoring, when you had a squared minus b squared, what that worked out to is a plus b, a minus b. Which means if we want to square both terms, so if we want to square the root 2 and the root 6, we have to multiply this by its inverse. So we're going to multiply this by root 2 minus root 6. And the numerator is going to be root 2 minus root 6 as well. When you expand this then, remember the numerator is 8 times root 2 minus 8 times root 6. And on the bottom, you essentially are squaring both terms. So it's going to get rid of the square root sign, but you have a minus sign in between them. So it's going to be 2 minus 6. 2 minus 6, we know, is just equal to negative 4. So I'm going to stick a negative here. We have 8 root 2 minus 8 root 6. And we are dividing this by a 4. A negative 4, but I put the negative outside. Now, what's nice about this one is 8 and 8 and 4 are all divisible by 4. So we can simplify this even more by dividing every single term by 4. So the 8s will both become 2s, and the 4 turns into a 1, which doesn't have to be written, which means this question will work out to negative 2 root 2 minus 2 root 6. And if you would like, you can simplify this a little bit more by bringing this negative all the way through. So if we do this, that turns into negative 2 root 2 plus 2 root 6. On to our next and final example. So we're going to do the same thing here. We're going to multiply it by the inverse of the denominator, so 2 root 2. Instead of a plus 7, we're going to do a minus root 7 over, same thing, 2 root 2 minus root 7. Let's expand the numerator. So first we have root 2 multiplied by 2 root 2. 2 stays on the outside. Root 2 times root 2 works out to a 2. Then we have root 2 multiplied by root 7. That will work out to negative root 14. Going to get rid of these arrows to write the next one. Negative 3 root 7 times 2 root 2 is negative 6 root 14. And finally, we have negative 3 root 7 times negative root 7. Negative times negative is going to turn into a positive. So positive 3 root 7 times root 7 is going to work out to a 7. And that is divided by the denominator. Remember, difference of squares, so square the first term. 2 squared is 4. Root 2 squared is 2. And keep the minus sign. Root 7 multiplied by root 7 is going to end up being 7. So let's simplify this a little bit more. 2 times 2 is 4. The negative root 14 and the negative 6 root 14 can be combined to make negative 7 root 14. And 3 times 7 is working out to 21. And on the denominator, we have 4 times 2, which is 8, minus 7. Last step then, we can combine the 4 and the 21 to get 25 minus 7 root 14. And we're really lucky here because our denominator, 8 minus 7, just works out to a 1, so we don't even have to write that. And that is our final answer.